Cheryl. What got into you?
At Sunoco, we know how to fuel peak performance. We've been doing it for American racing for over 50 years. Fuel your best.
One week after Richmond, race 4 brings the next different discipline to a season full of obstacles. Dirt, slippery, wild, and everything in between. And it is live from the virtual Bristol Motor Speedway on the dirt, where we welcome you tonight to coverage of the 4th race of the Season 6 Sunoco Cup Series and the Dirty Air 250 live on Podium Esports. Glad to have you along with us on another Sunday evening where, alongside Joey Atterbury in the broadcast booth, my name is Kenneth Bueno. Ryan Bauer producing all the shots you're seeing this evening. He's using cameras provided by himself and by Dougie Beard. Joey, while the Real Life Cup Series still runs on dirt as we speak, the sim drivers here at the Sunoco Cup Series are ready to take their chance at it. It is a brand new track. Of course, over the last 3, we've seen different tracks, super speedways, road courses, short tracks, and now we've got dirt. It's a brand new equation, and it could throw a lot of drivers off and could give some opportunities as well.
Yeah, the 1.5 mile Atlanta, then the road course Circuit of the Americas, a little bit of a short track dip of the toe of Richmond, and now we're here at Bristol for the full true short track dirt. And yeah, I hear the race going on upstairs. It's still playing through the speakers right now, so I can't wait to see how what we see on the screen here virtually is going to equate to what's happening in real life right now.
It's funny to see the questions being answered in real life, and then we're going to have our own set of questions that we're going to bring into the sim here for the Sunoco Cup Series. Of course, this season bringing a lot of different challenges. This one, only the newest addition to the list. We had Atlanta to kick off the year Circuit of the Americas right after Richmond Raceway just 1 week ago. We had a relatively clean short track race up until the very end, but just like I said at the top, this is a brand new style of racing that we won't see for the rest of the calendar. So really, at this point, Joey, you really got to make sure you probably take advantage and make sure that if you're a driver that may not perform well at all the other tracks on the schedule, that you make sure that the dirt race at least goes in your favor. You can get a win here.
I think that's a great point. Yeah, this is a one-of-a-kind race on the schedule, as you see here. And if you're not as strong at some of these other racetracks or styles of racetrack, then you're right. Take advantage of the dirt. Get your practice laps in here and perform as well as you can. Steal away as many points as possible.
Stealing away points going to matter for all those drivers that are still looking for win number 1 in Season 6. One of those drivers who has none of those worries going into tonight at Bristol, it is the driver of the 5 car, Ross Harlow, who picked up the win at Richmond just 1 week ago. And we bring in Ross Harlow now on behalf of SKM, sitting on the pit lane as practice continues to roll through. And Ross, I know that before the season started, you looked at the schedule, you probably had an idea of what type of race this would be. Now that you've got the win in the bag and you're locked into the playoffs, what are your thoughts now?
Yeah, I mean, it's, a huge load off the shoulders for the next couple of weeks here, at least until we get to Nashville for that first round. Really gonna, for tonight, just go out, have fun, try to keep the nose clean. If a couple doors got to be sold to make room for a teammate, I can definitely make that happen. But no, it's just gonna, all seriousness, it's gonna be keep the car clean and keep it pointing in the right direction. I think we're gonna be in a good spot.
It's kind of funny to say keep it clean when obviously there's going to be dirt on the windshield, dirt on the front end, but keeping it without any sort of dinks and dents. But you do have that win at Richmond. You mentioned it's a big weight lifted off your shoulders, and I know I'll turn things back to 1 week ago where you had pretty much dominated the last half of that race, at least 46 laps led. You took that one away. How good was it to finally get back to victory lane after a while of not visiting it for a while?
Oh man, it was such a relief. It really was. Definitely felt like it was coming. Was putting together a lot of good, have been putting together a lot of good finishes these past few weeks. Had a lot of support from a lot of guys around me, all my teammates, a lot of friends, my sponsors. my whole family, they've all been, right there with me through all of this. They've supported me. They've held me up every step of the way, through all the hard times, all the rough finishes, all the runs all the wins that could have been but weren't. So to take that one home, it really it felt good, not just for me, personally, but for everybody that kind of helped me out through all that, and kind of felt like it was for them more than anything.
And it's a big win for SKM, of course, first win for that team in Season 6 of the Sunoco Cup Series. So based off of the laps that you've had in practice, I know you've ran 59 already as we take down to at least the final 4.5 seconds. What have you felt behind the wheel? What has the setup been like?
It's good. It's 1 and 2 is definitely going to be the place to watch out for, especially getting into 1. It feels like it really doesn't want to turn, and then right on that transition into turn 2, it really, the nose hooks up really hard, and you got to be ready to catch it, or it's just gonna come around. So a lot of it's going to be kind of keeping track of yourself there, and especially for guys with that are going to be doing what I'm doing, and more so running the bottom than anything. Kind of watch for those cars that are going to hook up and just naturally drive down from the top. 3 and 4, the car feels really good. It feels pretty well hooked up. Just got to be patient with the throttle here. That's really what it's going to come down to.
A lot of patience needed here from Bristol, but we know that you're already locked into the playoffs, so this regular season should be about learning and then, of course, making that push for the championship later this year. Ross, of course, congratulations on the win at Richmond last week. Welcome to the playoffs, and we wish you the best of luck in tonight's outing from Bristol Dirt.
Thank you much, Kenneth. I appreciate it, sir.
So that's Ross Harlow, driver of the 5, of course, winner at Richmond. He's already locked into the playoffs, joined with Mario Miranda and Curtis Kelly. All 3 of them will see a playoff bid, at least for them, near the end of the regular season. A driver who is still trying to get that berth to the playoffs, and one that comes off of a 6th place finish at Richmond just 1 week ago. It is Jesse Whittington for Red Line Racing. Jesse, of course, welcome to the broadcast booth. We know it was a fantastic finish you had in the Commonwealth of Virginia not too long ago. What are your thoughts and somewhat expectations going into Bristol Dirt this evening?
I'm hoping it's not going to be too much chaos. I don't know if there's going to be any way to save the chaos, but yeah, I've been having this race circled all year. The last time I got a win with these guys, I mean, albeit it was a different car, was on dirt at Knoxville in the late model, so I'm hoping I can kind of try to find a way to repeat that magic going through the night. And but coming off of a 6th place run, it's definitely a good place to start with the confidence and the momentum.
Momentum for sure on your side, but like I said at the top of this broadcast, Bristol Dirt is just such an oddball, way different from a lot of the other tracks and styles of racing that we're going to be expecting to see over Season 6. So how do you try and mount over the challenges you'll find here at Bristol Dirt and be able to make it a consistent finish?
Just working the throttle, trying to stay out of trouble. I don't need to go out there and try to push the envelope on anything. Just go out there, run my race, do what I can, control what I can, and from there, just hope for the best, hope for consistent laps, and just keep on working throughout the night and see where we end up at the end.
We know you got some new colors on your Chevrolet Camaro this evening. Sheriff Strafe, any thoughts? And just talk to us about that sponsor and having the new colors on the car tonight.
Oh man, Sheriff Strafe, that is a stand-up guy. I know he's supposed to be tuned in tonight at some point, and I hope he's in there now. If you are, hello, Mr. Strafe. But yeah, I had him on the car. I just wanted to run something that was fun to me. I've been supporting him on Twitch for quite a while, and I would just reached out and asked him, like, hey, can I run your colors? Like, I'm just looking to do something fun. He reached out to me after Richmond and was like, hey, let's do this for the rest of the season. And I said, all right, let's do it. And we worked out a little bit of a deal, and we have something to do with the team name, but that'll come at some point soon, hopefully, but we'll get that worked out. And but yeah, I mean, Sheriff Strafe, he's an awesome guy, and go to sheriffstrafe.com, check out what he's got to offer. He's a streamer on Twitch and Kick and TikTok. He's got almost 500,000 followers on TikTok, 96,000 on Twitch. He's got about 6,000 followers on YouTube. And he hadn't let any of those numbers go to his head. He's a really good guy, and I can't say enough about him. and the experience that I've had with him to this point, and I can't thank him enough for letting me represent him on track and doing what I can to give him a good name out there as well.
We know Sheriff Strafe is in the Twitch chat, and he's gifted some tier 1 subs already, so we know he's going to be cheering you on once you take the green flag. Qualifying starting, Jesse. We'll let you get to it. Best of luck in the race tonight from Bristol Dirt.
Yeah, thank you guys so much, and I'll see y'all later, hopefully.
So that is Jesse Whittington, driver of the number 94. And ready for qualifying. We will head and bring the field for their 2-lap shootout to set the fastest times and bring us the starting grid and who's going to be where at the beginning of this 125-lap race from Bristol, Tennessee. And Joey, this race, of course, it is Bristol, but it's the different version. It's Bristol Dirt, not necessarily the concrete track that we're accustomed to seeing. It's a brand new style of racing all put into this bowl we call the fastest half mile.
Yeah, the fastest half mile, although a little bit slower with dirt on here. You're getting this awesome shot, a half mile in length, originally opened 1961, 22 to 24 degrees of bankings in the turns. A little bit, only 9 degrees on the straightaway, but you will see it slightly banked there on the straightaway. And actually, where all this dirt comes from, we zoomed out a little bit here on this satellite view. They keep it all just in a parking lot about 1.5 miles away, and they truck it out and in when they want to cover this place in that red clay dirt.
And it makes it so much fun when you look at the dirt surface, and this track will change. We'll talk about that as we get to the green flag and as we get a couple of laps in under green. This is what the race analysis looks like. And Joey, we go 125 laps, but just like every other race in the Sunoco Cup Series, we do have some stages, so it kind of gives the drivers a little more of an opportunity to set their race up, take some notes, and see what they can do in those final 65 to get a win.
Well, not only that, but it opens up some doors for some different strategies as well, and might see a few of those play out with so many trucks, or I'm sorry, so many cars out there on the racetrack. And got to remember, no fast repairs as well, so that might play into that pit stop strategy as well as those stages.
And it also goes into that idea that we've heard drivers talk about in and out through this race here at Bristol Dirt, keeping the nose clean, making sure that they don't get involved in incidents. And with the fact that they do not have those fast repairs given to them, they don't have those freebies. They can't just afford to be in a crash. They need to make sure they get away from all the mayhem as much as possible. Qualifying beginning right now. One of the drivers on track is the 55 of Joe Sanchez. And after the race at Richmond Raceway just a week ago, finished 4th after starting in 11th. It was a very consistent finish for the Ally Chevrolet, and bringing this car, I believe, to the first lap here at Bristol Dirt. And it's somewhat interesting, Joey, to watch the way these drivers ride this track, because many of them have different ideologies, whether it's wrap the bottom or go all the way to the top to get as much momentum off the corner. And we're going to see that through the race. A lot of drivers experimenting and seeing what lines work with the way they like to drive it.
It's a little bit like a dance out there, getting the car turned in when you need to, and also getting it squared up and get the launch off of the corner. And Kenneth, one other thing to add to on top of that is the track will change. So the evolution of how the race car drives and where the fast line is going to be is going to evolve with that dance as well.
And that is true. You get to bounce that car around. And Joe Sanchez, we just saw him complete his final lap. His time at a 19.47 right now, good enough for P8, but I think he just got bumped off to 9th. But we'll just see. There's Ross Harlow, the driver we just talked to not too long ago. And you can see just how much he's having to rip this car around Bristol Dirt. It is a heavy stock car with a decent amount of power behind it, and the underbody also doesn't really help that much, Joey. It's very different to racing a World of Outlaw car or really anything else on a dirt surface. It's really a unique experience as we watch that 5 continue to pull laps.
Well, and you saw the first lap, he was really riding the top side, trying to rip the cushion, and didn't work out for him. Here on this second lap, it looks like he's going a little bit more conservative, trying to get a true lap through the middle of the track in the books.
Our fastest lap so far, 19.12, and it's set by the driver who was at the top of the board in practice, the 18 of Parker Bland. He has had a struggle to begin season 6 of the Sunoco Cup Series, but maybe tonight could be the turnaround. And it's exactly what I said a little earlier. This race is such an oddball that for the dirt ringers, the drivers who are not necessarily as confident with their skills at every other venue in the series, they have that skill set on dirt. We know how sideways Parker Blank can get with saving that car. Here's a look at the 94, Jesse Whittington. Of course, we also talked to him not too long ago, putting in his times. As it stands, he's not putting in a time yet, but as he comes out of turn 4, this would be as he crosses the line, 19.67. That should get him at least halfway through the field, at least just outside of the top 10. It's a good opportunity, though, Joey, when you have 2 laps. You don't have one, so at least if he doesn't have the best first lap, he can kind of learn, take some notes from that first lap, and go back for the second. He'll cross the line, and this time it is actually slower. He remains a 19.67, puts him 14th on the running order.
Well, and to talk more about qualifying here is track position is so important at Bristol just overall, as we're right on board with Logan Sturgeon here in the number 26. However, you throw dirt on it, and I really feel like track position is even more crucial for staying clean out there. And you got to have a clean race car if you want to win this race. And that means starting as far forward as you can. Qualifying definitely very important tonight.
Yeah, a lot of drivers on dirt, and even some of the real-life NASCAR Cup Series drivers. I know earlier tonight, Tyler Reddick was talking about how important track position was instead of going for pit road. So we might just see qualifying be that much more important, and also pit strategy when you look at the way this race is structured in terms of stages. Here's Prestige Worldwide Racing's Garrett Brown in the number 16. He's been rocking the yellow and blue all season long, but for Best Buy on his Ford Mustang, he will come out of turn 4, cross for that lap, and it looks like it will be for Brown. The best lap so far, 20.52. It puts him 29th, and we do have a bunch of drivers that have yet to put in time in qualifying, one of them being Brad Fulham in the 19, but here's another one coming out for his lap. This is the 23 of Aaron Adcock, his Chevrolet Camaro, now coming out of what's pretty much turn 2 for turns 3 and 4. And Joey, when you look at the way you have to race this track, are you looking at outside potentially for a good setup like Adcock is doing here, or are you just looking at middle to bottom for the first lap at least?
I think it all depends on your confidence level coming into qualifying. You know, how comfortable are you riding that cushion around the top? But I think no matter what to set up your fast lap, you want to be all the way up top and try to get that drive off of turn 4. And I think Aaron here, let's see what he comes around with. Looks like a 20.6. Gonna put him 30th place right now. I think he's just riding a little bit too high. You see him get into the wall there in turns 1 and 2, and when you get into that dark dirt, there isn't as much grip. You just go sliding up towards the wall.
And we're going to see that groove change over the course of this race. You watch Alex Muscarella flirt with it just a little bit and almost gets into that outside wall, and I believe with Adcock's mistake hitting the barrier, that is going to invalidate his lap. If you get any sort of X's, incident points in your qualifying laps, whether that be on lap 1 or lap 2, that time will not be counted. So it looks like for Adcock, he's going to roll with a 20.622, and that is going to put him 31st on the racetrack when we inevitably get the green flag for Alexander Muscarella. For the moment, he seems to be putting up some decent laps right now, sitting third, 19.21, and as he crosses the line, will that be any better? Answer is no. He'll stick with the same time he put in lap 1. That is a podium start for the 48 of Alex Muscarella, who did not necessarily have the greatest race last week at Richmond, finished in 34th after starting in 27th. So we'll see exactly how things go. And with Joey, with the way we're seeing a lot of now newcomers and some drivers who have been struggling over the first 3 now make an attempt to be very fast in this qualifying time, in this qualifying session now for the green. Again, it just goes back to those opportunities coming up and these drivers making the most of it. Should be a lot of fun when we get that mix of drivers in the green flag.
100%. And I think one of the most exciting parts about dirt racing is not as many cars we throw on it. That's the cool part, is the track evolution and seeing them ride the cushion out there, finding the different lines and speed as it changes. We're used to a track rubbering up, but this track deteriorates far faster than any track will rubber up. So the lines, I think, are really going to change throughout the night.
And we'll get those drivers who'd like to be all the way at the top, those that like to be all the way at the bottom. And those who just try to carry their discipline to wherever the fate takes them, whether it's to the top in 1 and 2, the bottom in 3 and 4, wherever you go. We'll see how they adjust to that. And those 30 lap stages, Joey, should be an indicator of what's going to work and what's not going to work. But like you said, with the way the track changes so quickly, it might just be a big question mark. And I think that's why it makes dirt racing. And here at Bristol with these stock cars, a lot of fun as qualifying ticks down to the final 20 seconds.
Yeah, well, you bring up a great point. Not every driver is comfortable ripping the top there. And so you're right. We're going to see some bottom feeders all the way down low tonight. We're going to see some guys running in the middle, and then we're going to see guys pushing the cushion right in that wall.
We'll see the different styles of racing at display, qualifying down to a close, and that means it is our time to take you trackside, bring you your starting grid, and see exactly where every driver will line up when we take the green here for the Dirty Air 250 from Bristol Motor Speedway and the dirt configuration. For the 18 of Parker Bland, it is his first pole of the season with a 19.124. He'll be the first to see the green. You'll have Gary Sexton on the 13 car on his outside in that first row. Alex Muscarella, we saw him put in his qualifying time, and he starts third. Zach Wilson in the number 51 for RTR Motorsports will be on his outside in P4. Dustin Reeves with a great qualifying effort, a 19.37 to put him inside the top 5, and he will have the number 2 of Travis Stevens to his outside in row number 3. And then the 2 doubled up in row 4. Mario Miranda for 0G, Bill Schoonover in the 9 for Nitro Motorsports. Then comes the final 2 drivers inside your top 10, both from the same camp at Drinkin' Bros Racing, defending series champion Lawson Peel in the 12, and the number 55 of Joe Sanchez.
Here in row number 6, we have Dakota Curtis in the number 10, lined up alongside Isaac Mock in the number 47. Here in 13th, we got Ross Harlow and Austin Reedy in the number 96. And then 15th, we got wide bracket with Jesse Whittington, Steven Stempian here in the number 81, and 17th, Austin Shoemaker alongside Kevin Hurley in the number 25, Colin Forrester in the 20th position in the number 31.
Look at 21st, it begins with the 85 of Judd Danielson. Chris Shoemaker on the 4 to his outside in row number 11. Kip Easley and Chris Progar, the 8 and the 7. Those 2 back in row number 12. Row 13 will feature the 71 of Curtis Kelly. Logan Sturgeon in the 26. Curtis Kelly, end of line penalty to start for missing the drivers meeting. Roll call. Joe Mahar in the number 46, joined alongside by Justin Erb in row number 14. Before you will find the next 2 to round out your top 30. The 32 of Richard Swavely, the number 75 of Charles Phelps. Will bring us to the rest of the drivers in our grid here from Bristol Dirt. It begins with Garrett Brown in 31st, 32nd to the 23 of Aaron Adcock. Justin Winters is 33rd. Sean Kalis on the outside in 34th. Kalis also assessed an end-of-line penalty for missing the drivers meeting roll call. James Kunkel and Ray Rogers will be doubled up in row number 18. Then row number 19, Brandon Banks in the number 37 spot, and Justin Miller on his outside in 38th. Then the final 2 to round out the field from Bristol Dirt, Brad Fulham in the 19, the 84 of Casey Knighton. It is a beautiful night to go racing here from Bristol Dirt. Track temp at around 70 degrees, but it should obviously remain that way as we get the rest of this race. Joey, your quick thoughts before we get the green on our first and only dirt race of the season.
It's warming up, and I mean the temperatures out there inside the cockpits. We're about to see everything unleash here at the green flag. I can't wait. 125 laps at Bristol Dirt.
125 grueling laps. We went 151 last season. Of course, a little bit of a shorter race, but of course we should have an absolutely outstanding race all the way to the end. Green flag in the air. The Dirty Air 250 from Bristol Dirt is underway.
Clean start from our leader, Gary Sexton right now. Zach Wilson, second place, and check this out. Side by side between Alex Muscarella and Parker Bland, although pretty mild from the top 4.
And we are 3 wide in the back end of the top 10. You saw the struggle by the 18 of Parker Bland. Of course, they're a pole sitter, but had his car all over the place. And you talked about a dance during the broadcast earlier tonight, Joey, but it felt like that was a full-on shuffle, and it's a shuffle to the back of the top 5. It'll put him 4th for right now as Mario Miranda grabs away 5th from Travis Stevens back in P6, and things have slightly settled for 7th on back as there were 2 and 3 wide, and now make it a side-by-side battle between Bill Schoonover and Joe Sanchez. A lot of antsiness, but of course, Joey, it's somewhat of a mix of being crazy, going for aggressive moves and track position, but also making sure you keep that car under you. It's a very interesting balance you need to have as you're on board with Sexton in the 13.
Well, you know, the front of this race looks very different from about 10th place on back. I think we can really only call the top 10 because, oh my gosh, 2, 3, 4 wide. Look at this back here, right on board with the number 6 of Dustin Reeves, a little bit further back in the pack, and it just starts to get crazy back here.
And he's got a car sideways in front of him that he goes by. That's the 14 of Austin Shoemaker. Had to chase that car down the banking on the front straightaway. Looks like he's going to pick things up, but he has dropped to 16th on the racetrack. Here's our biggest battle so far. This is for 12th. That is Austin Reedy in the 6 of Dustin Reeves. Now make it another fight, but this time with Zach Wilson, Gary Sexton for the lead. Caution flag will wave, though, for the first time this evening. And it appears to be one slow car on the racetrack. It might have been the 46 of Joseph Mohar, who just found trouble. Going to pick some spots back up, but that does bring us under the first yellow flag at around lap 7 of 125. And indeed, Joey, you look at the replay, and it was just a case of getting hit. This is Judd Danielson, just barely slides in him. And, you know, apart from the asphalt and concrete surfaces we're used to racing, you have a lot more grip in those situations, and in dirt, you don't.
Yeah, both in avoidance and in the save of the slide. And I think we're going to see the top car I think he gets a little bit too yawed out on the initial flick here and has to lift way off of the gas. And there you see the 85, and then also the dominoes continue to affect the number 26 as well as he gets collected.
Yeah, Logan Sturgeon packing into the 85. And he also gets a piece of that, maybe some front-end nose damage, but at least for now, it doesn't seem to be that big of a dilemma. We did see what car get lapped for the moment, and we already have a couple of cars lapped down or more, and that list starts with the 3 of James Kunkel, then Sean Kalis, Curtis Kelly, and Alex Muscarella. Remember, we saw that 48 start in 3rd this evening. His race has gone severely wrong. I think he did, Joey, start from the pit lane, so... Well, he did have that 3rd place. Sorry, maybe he had some problems to begin this race because we saw him so far up the field, and now it has been the complete opposite. But from the first 7, we saw a lot of great battles, but maybe it's just drivers trying to take notes and get a little comfortable, but maybe some of them pushing the boundaries quite a bit.
Well, and something we really didn't even mention is the 51, Zach Wilson, came up there and stole away the lead from Gary Sexton right before that yellow flag came out. And I think one of the reasons why we saw that the front of the field really got stretched out, and then all of a sudden they hit lap traffic at about lap 5 or lap 6. And let me tell you, with 40 cars on this half mile covered in dirt, that is going to be a story all night long. What is lap traffic going to do out there?
Yeah, lap traffic is big, and that's something that we saw last week at Richmond. But with the way the drivers struggle here at Bristol Dirt, especially those near the rear that are just trying to get their footing down, the leaders who go absolutely by them, it just creates a whole gaggle of cars, and you're right. It's a great point that lap traffic here might just be the biggest factor that you'll play with all night long, and that's exactly why you saw that pass for the lead. Zach Wilson finding his way by the 13. Remember, Parker Bland, our pole sitter tonight, he has fallen back to 3rd, but he'll have a chance to redeem himself on our next restart. Zach Wilson trying to rebound off of the last time we were here at Bristol Dirt last season. Over the 151 laps, it was a disconnection for the driver with the fastest average lap of the entire field. Came home 31st after starting in 3rd. So Zach Wilson looking to find a rebound here and to get to victory lane for what would be the first time this season. And for drivers, Joey, you know, like Zach Wilson, who maybe found not a lot of luck last time we were here in previous history, tonight is kind of like that redemption arc, right? You have that feeling that, hey, I didn't do it last time around. I knew I was one of the fastest cars, but now I need to find a way to prove myself to the rest of the field, and I need to show why I could be a winner in this series and why I deserve to be at the top here at Bristol Dirt.
Well, let me tell you, a driver's relationship with a track is a very love-hate relationship. Sometimes they love them, sometimes they despise them, but something that can make you turn it all around is a win and a checkered flag at the end of the day.
And that is true, and a ticket to the playoffs. That's something that Wilson has been looking for. He picked up a top 10 last week at Richmond. He possibly had an opportunity to win that race on fresh tires. So, of course, there's a lot to look forward to. I think we are extending this caution. You did see the pace truck come down. We were going to get ourselves back under green flag action for what was going to be the kickoff of lap number 12 of 125, so slowly approaching the halfway mark of stage number 1, but race control has extended it by 1 lap. I think, Joey, it was to just get the entire field picked up all together, and we'll have everybody side by side. But it is interesting seeing Zach Wilson take the outside on the restart. He wants the momentum off the top lane.
And I think that's going to change between clean air and not clean air, but I think the 51 might be able to get the drive off of 4 and really get to throw in the car into turn 1. Oh!
It's a sluggish restart from the inside lane, and most notably, the 18 of Parker Bland. He severely drops through the field. They're 3 wide in turns 1 and 2. Make that 4 wide for a moment. That's Dakota Curtis, Ross Harlow, Joe Sanchez, and Travis Stevens in the mix. Looks like the 2 might have fallen out. He completely disappears from our view, but that is Austin Reedy settling in his 7th as Zach Wilson continues to pull away. And how about P2? Mario Miranda takes it away from Gary Sexton.
Really good job running the low lane right now from Mario Miranda. You see him way down there, almost entering pit lane, and now he moves back up the racetrack, put that right rear right on that cushion, get the drive off coming out of turn 4.
Try his best to get that run, but he's got a lot of space between himself and Gary Sexton. The next car in line, car almost around behind him, and that's the 12 of Lawson Peel. We saw both of them have sparks fly at Richmond just 1 week ago. And it appears he almost made some contact there and almost went around for good. Ross Harlow in a battle with Jesse Whittington right behind him. And Joey, in a situation like this as a driver, are you just trying to find yourself in all of this and try to not be as aggressive? Or in a way, are you accidentally being aggressive with the way you're just trying to find things out and solve your issues you have here?
I think the best description is controlled aggression, because you don't want to be too nice out there. Trust me, the other drivers will sense it and they will push you around. So you got to be dominant out there on the racetrack of where you want to put your car. Don't let other cars push you around, but also you don't need to wreck anybody.
We also have note that Travis Stevens has disconnected with packet loss, disconnectivity issues, so tough break for the number 2, who had a great qualifying run, and we could have seen so much more from him throughout this race, but unfortunately, the connectivity issues definitely out of the way. Cars sideways. That is Joe Sanchez, Jesse Whittington. They were roughly 3 wide with the 12 of Lawson Peel. They made some contact. They slipped all over the place. Fortunately, everyone keeps their cars collected, and we do have a car on pit road. And Joey, that's Gary Sexton. He was running 3rd.
Very interesting. I wonder if this is a pit lane call or like a strategy call, or if there's damage on that number 13 machine. We'll have to see how it all plays out, but a green flag pit stop, I would think, not in the cards.
And car into the wall right in front of them. It's Justin Erb. Contact with Dustin Reeves. I think they're going to keep themselves on the racetrack clean. None of them are around, so race control is not going to throw the yellow flag. We're going to try to get more word on exactly what happened to the 13 of Sexton. We saw a bit of that rear end damage, maybe some front end, car around, and that is the 6 of Dustin Reeves. We do have word now, Joey, pass-through penalty assessed to Gary Sexton for jumping the restart. It's something that you can make a mistake very easily here at Bristol Dirt when you're trying to anticipate a restart zone that's half covered by the dirt on the outside wall.
I totally feel for Gary Sexton out there, and also there was that big jumble up in that lower lane, so I just think that whole restart in general, a little bit of sloppy. And check out this scrum. We have 7th place right here. Austin Reedy looking ahead of the 31 of Colin Forrester. Just a little bit of nudge to that corner panel. As they say, that's rubbing, and rubbing is racing.
We saw a car power on the outside, and that was the number 81 of Steven Stempy. And remember, there are some lap cars in this mix, one of them being the 311 of Ray Rogers, goes around, careens to the inside wall. Now, will that be a caution? I'm not sure whether it will be. We also have Mario Miranda hitting the chat box saying he's going to come into the pits, but chaos all over the top 10, and somehow we are still racing. There's another car around. Make that Justin Erb, him and Dakota Curtis packet on the inside of the racetrack. And through all this, Joey, there's still no yellow. We're still running.
Hey, well, I kind of like what I'm seeing, actually, because race control's letting it play out. There's 40 cars here at Bristol, and there's bound to be accidents, and it's kind of a little bit of thinning the herd early on. Let's get some clean racing out there, and you guys are going to decide if it's clean or not.
Well, that is true, and we're seeing drivers solve their issues behind the wheel, whether they be too loose or they get into contact with the driver. And I think that chat box message by Miranda saying pitting in 99, that might have just been a little mistake. No penalties or anything for Miranda. He continues to ride in second, although he does have a second and a half to catch up to your race leader, who's still trying to figure his way out through some lap traffic. The 51 of Zach Wilson. Battle for position number 8. Joe Sanchez, Jesse Whittington, and Austin Reedy among those in this fight. Splitting lap traffic, and there's a big wreck in front, and that involves Miranda. Stepien gets into the back end of him. Ross Harlow hits the inside wall on the bottom of the track, and for the second time tonight, Joey, a caution out on lap 27, but a big one.
This is tough. The 99 you see down here on the low side of the racetrack, you're going to see him throw it up there, really get the car yawed in, but too much angle just ends up spinning out. And here on Bristol dirt, everybody piling in. You mentioned it, just the reaction times. It's not as possible on dirt as it is on pavement.
And here's Lawson Peel in the 12 who gets into him and ends up into the outside wall. That was just before the 81 of Stepien packs in on the rear end of the 99. Ross Harlow, who looked like he was going to get away from it all on the way bottom of the racetrack, does not escape the chaos as Miranda comes sliding down. Here's a look from the 5, who makes contact with Stepien, puts him into the wall. Then as Stepien comes back up the track, he is nowhere to go but into the rear end of Miranda. And then it all comes full circle. All 3 of them involved in this incident, including some others. And again, it turns back to that lack of a fast repair, Joey. In this case, you get into an incident like that, the reaction times are not as quick, and obviously the car isn't responsive enough because it doesn't have grip on the bottom end, and all of a sudden you've got a packed race car. If you're one of those drivers now, how do you kind of assess the rest of the race?
It can be tough. It can be really tough. I think if you have damage right now, if you can, under yellow flag, assess how bad it is. If you need to, come down and take repairs right now. Kind of make your bed, if you will, because under yellow flag, you have a little bit longer lap time to get some of that fixed. But I still think the key to tonight's race is going to be track position. Do not go 1 lap down if you can afford not to.
And that's maybe why we're seeing a lack of drivers on pit road. It appears to be everybody 19th on back for the most part. At least some of them are coming in. Steven Stepien being one of them. So was Lawson Peel. And it's basically all the drivers who were involved in that incident. It also tags in the 99 of Mario Miranda. But fortunately for all of them, I believe they're going to avoid being put a lap down. A lot of them have found their way back onto the clay dirt surface. And we're going to be joined with Zach Wilson there at the head of the field and have some wave rounds in the process. Pace car picks up the field, and that is the conclusion of stage 1. So we have a caution right before the stage end, and it's exactly what happened at Richmond not too long ago, just a week by. We did have the cautions come out at least a lap or 2 before the stages, and then we do have points assessed. But how about Zach Wilson, Joey? I think probably the most consistent, the most calm driver, and even through lap traffic, you'd expect that to bring a lot of challenges. But for Wilson, just kind of went through it without any problems, and now that's why he's been so confident and so composed in the race lead.
Well, in that first short green flag run, he went up and stole away the lead, and you're right, hasn't let go of it since. But I'm also looking at that number 31, Colin Forrester, up 18 positions from his starting spot. Tremendous run from the number 31 so far.
He is one of the biggest movers of the night, and one of the others you can consider, the 16 of Garrett Brown, who started in 31st, and now he is up to 14th. Quick update, 22 cars on the lead lap. First car 1 lap down is the 26 of Logan Sturgeon. We've had a lot of drivers go around and find some problems here at Bristol Dirt, but we'll just see if they get a little more comfortable throughout stage 2. It's again going to be another 30-lap sprint, so these laps are going to go relatively by pretty quickly. So we'll just see how that is going to settle itself out. But if you're a driver like Colin Forrester here, Joey, now what's the mindset? Are you just full on attack to Zach Wilson, or do you just decide, I've kept all this track position and I've gotten it up to this point. Now I just need to focus on keeping it rather than throwing it away by going for the lead.
Hey, you know what? You drove up there. Let's see what you got, number 31. Colin Forrester, I say let her eat. Let's see what it can do.
Forster comes off of a poor finish at Richmond just 1 week ago. Rather, not a poor finish at all. It was P5, but nonetheless, green flag back in the air. Colin Forster looking to the inside of Zach Wilson, but that 51 pulls away, and it looks like Bill Schoonover now next on the attack. He'll try to get to the 31. Ross Harlow, the 94 of Jesse Whittington, and the 96 of Austin Riddy all doing battle for what's going to be P4 on the racetrack.
Yeah, and I'm actually really surprised that number 5 car right here, Ross Harlow, he was involved in that wreck. He got collected down low. I don't see too much damage, though, on the number 5. And one thing I've noticed about Harlow is that he is a bottom feeder most of the night. Although, here we go, right in the middle of the racetrack. He's really been running down low.
He has been wrapping that bottom. Remember, he was involved in our most recent caution, but he's been able to stay out. He's kept his position, and now the final one inside your top 5. And he is trying to keep that car steady as can be. There's a lap car way slow on the bottom of the racetrack, and that looks to be the 81 of Steven Stepien. But fortunately, your leaders will have no problem getting around through the outside. They'll cross the line here for what's going to be lap 36 of 125, and we'll get closer and closer to the end of stage number 2. There's a look at Wilson, who, by the way, Joey, has not been able to fully pull away from Zach Wilson from the 31 of Colin Forster. These guys have been rather close at around 0.3 of a second.
No, and actually the 31 of Colin Forster closed it up just a little bit, and you see two very different driving styles. The 31 way up in the dirt here in turns 1 and 2, and then you saw Zach Wilson in the 51 really going down low, and I think that's just the track evolution that we were talking about. Look at how blue-grooved and how slippery the middle of the track is. These front runners really searching around to the different areas to try to find what works best.
And it looks like they're using a diamond approach for the most part. They're sliding into the corner, getting way up high, and then trying to arc it down low. Here's a look at our full driver cam wall. Everybody working the steering wheel to get around Bristol dirt. It is not easy getting this 3,400-pound stock car way around this half-mile track on the dirt. Colin Forrester continues to put the pressure on Zach Wilson, although got a little loose there at the exit of turn 2, and that is gonna somewhat let off the pressure he was putting on. And Wilson has a little bit of an opportunity to catch his breath and have some elbow room. Steven Wilson, and now, or rather, Steven Stepien in the number 81 getting around there. I kind of confused myself with the Coke Series driver, but Steven Stepien in the middle of this pack now trying to unlap himself here.
Yeah, he's the one car that's out of place right here, and he's actually looking down underneath our leader, Steven Stepien, getting the lap back the hard way. As looks like the 31 of Colin Forrester still trying to ride that high line. But hey, props to Steven, because getting that lap back under green flag conditions, never easy to do.
And it is never easy. Remember, he packed into the back end of Mario Miranda in our most recent caution. And much like Ross Harlow, they found the way somehow to rebound that 81 now on the lead lap. So let's say if a caution does come out from here on out, or even if he stays where he's at by the end of stage 2, which should come in at least 20 laps time, he'll have an ability to be on the lead lap and have some positions to gain when we get that next restart at some point. And he is only continuing to make more time on the car in front. That 25 of Kevin Hurley only about a 2 3/10 off of him. So obviously for Stepien, there's a lot to gain, and he's very fast. So we'll see what he can do. There's a look at the 7 of Chris Pogar riding around in 13th after starting in 24th. Very good, solid start for him over the first 43, and then battle for 4th. Ross Harlow, Jesse Whittington using the both ideologies, getting around the lap car that is Wyatt Brackett in the 30, but obviously, Joey, if you look at the lap times, they're catching up to your leaders, so it's somewhat of a quartet now for P1.
No, yeah, Whittington is the fastest car on the racetrack. Check this out. He's looking down low underneath the 31 of Colin Forrester. Not going to be able to make a move this lap, but you're right. Himself and Ross Harlow have inserted themselves into the mix for the lead, and combine that with the lap traffic, and my goodness, this is some regular interstate rush hour.
It definitely is. It is an absolute parking lot. The 94 and the 5 get way sideways in turns 1 and 2. And that'll scrub off the time that they gained on the 31 and the 51. But Joey, from the perspective of the driver, especially any one of these top 4, you're working through lap traffic, you're trying to gain position, or in the case of Zach Wilson, defend your position. How do you find a way to stay consistent and stay together when so much chaos is going around you as Joseph Mohar goes around right in front of the leaders and they all get by?
That was right in front of our lead pack, and I think the mindset of the drivers, you just have to stay focused. You almost have to turn off that rear view mirror back there and just rely on where you're putting the track. And we got 4 wide racing. Looks like Jesse Whittington gonna capitalize on that traffic. And I think what you gotta do, Kenneth, is get your elbows out. Don't let anybody bully you around, and just, like I said, keep your eyes forward.
And your top 4 right now all finished 7th or better last week at Richmond Raceway. And the short track success only continuing for these drivers, but this time on a different surface. Colin Forrester drops back to 4th, had some struggles there over the past couple of laps, and he might be in the clutches of Austin Reedy, who's not too far behind. Here's a look at Mario Miranda in the number 99 machine. He currently rides in 9th, working on Austin Shoemaker, and much like the others, Joey, had that big crash. Somehow got the car repaired, is back out on the racing surface, and at this point is getting back into the place where he can get some stage points.
Yeah, and I think I still see maybe a little bit of front end damage on the number 99, and I don't think it's affecting the pace though that much. We got to remember, Bristol, not a very high speed racetrack, and then you cover it in this dirt and we slow down the speeds even more. So the aerodynamics not really playing a factor here, but if you bang up the suspension or knock out the toe on the car, I think that's when you're going to see the drivers come down pit road and really take that time penalty to fix the race car.
And that is true, and we watched the entire field continue to work their way around traffic, whether that be lead or lap cars. It just depends on where you are on the racetrack, and I believe Jesse Whittington has found the problem. We saw him connecting in and out from the session. He is now greeted with the tire barrels at the exit of one of the corners, and I believe that might have been either turn 2 or turn 4, but he was running as high as 3rd on the racetrack, and it is a tough break here, Joey, for that 94, now out of the race.
Yeah, and Jesse Whittington, one of the fastest cars. He was up so many positions. We were talking to him at the beginning of the show, and really it was kind of becoming my favorite out there. I thought he looked to be the fastest car that was currently on the racetrack.
He definitely was, and he was catching up to the likes of Zach Wilson and company up at the very front. Here's our pole sitter, Parker Bland, in a sea of cars around the top 5. At least in terms of Mario Miranda, and that's concerned. Joe Sanchez not too far up the road either for P4, and then just a bunch of lap traffic. They'll scoon over in the 9, the 23 of Aaron Adcock. All of these drivers are just looking to get around the 18, despite somewhat of a poor start and somewhat of a little bit of time to get going. That 18 has now picked up the speed. He was the fastest car in practice, fastest in qualifying, and now the luscious locks behind the driver, or behind the wheel of the 18 rather, now finding his way into P6. It might be P5. There's Joe Sanchez, mistake, and there goes the 18 through.
I love the luscious locks comment, and the thing that I was noticing about it was just how much they're working the wheel here at Bristol. And we've talked about the dirt so much, but the yaw angles coming into and out of the corner, not to mention the entire time through the corner that you're fighting the thing. So I love seeing all of the wheel movement and the intensity, and especially with the virtual reality. Now, Kenneth, I don't know how much time you spend actually racing in the simulator, but I would think that virtual reality here at Bristol Dirt actually might be a little bit of a benefit with how sideways you're throwing these cars.
Yeah, it's true. You get a little bit of a vantage point. While I'm not a virtual reality user by any stretch of the imagination, I've tested it before, and it was certainly a different experience. And very fun, but I was always just used to the monitors. And you do have that extra edge. You look down the track, you can look all around, and you don't really have that situation where you're pressing buttons to look left or right. You could just turn your head, and there you go. You've got the view behind the wheel of the stock car. But you talk about, Joey, the way that you have to keep this car steady while being sideways and while this groove is slicking off, you also have to pair that with throttle control. We saw a couple of drivers, most notably Harlow and Whittington, before we dropped the green flag, mention that, and that was one of the biggest things they put out front, was keeping the throttle as steady as possible and just controlling it through the race. It was a big point, and we're watching a lot of drivers do that now as the laps have winded down here.
Well, you got to remember, there's a lot of horsepower underneath the hoods of these cars as we're winding down stage 2, and even going down the straightaway, you got to modulate that power because those differentials, they actually help turn the car. So if you're not careful with that gas, you can definitely turn it the wrong way.
And that's true. With the 670 horsepower you have under the hood of these next-gen cars, you're gonna have to make sure you keep that power controlled as much as possible. This is the stage 2 end, and this stage goes to Zach Wilson in the number 51. This time we do not get a crash that breaks us through, and for the second straight time, that 51 of Zach Wilson, your stage winner. He's got all the playoff points and the points necessary to mount that playoff run. We'll see if we can complete it with a race win. More from the Dirty Air 250 at Bristol Dirt. On the other side, you're watching coverage of the Sunoco Cup Series right here on Podium Esports.
Janice.
What's up, Doug? Hi, Cheryl. What got into you?
At Sunoco, we know how to fuel peak performance. We've been doing it for American racing for over 50 years. Fuel your best.
Fuller. Yeah. Needed F-150 for Smith build.
Got it.
Yesterday.
I know.
Don't forget my BMW.
Gotcha. Check this out. All the major online automotive sites in one place. BMW, done. F-150, done.
How's he do it?
I can search nationwide, even those classified sites. Auto Tempest, all the cars, one search. That's how I do it.
Hi guys, today me and Moose welcome to my extremely formal presentation of my two latest creations, the MPI Sync Chassis and the MPI Foldable Stand. When I created the MPI chassis, I wanted to have everything included, what it means. So in the MPI chassis, I wanted to have everything you need besides the electronics. So it has the keyboard tray, mouse tray, adjustability, TV stand, computer stand, super stiff pedal assembly, a seat that if you want, if you don't have a lot of space, you can fold it. If you have limited space, I solved your problem. The MPI wheel stand, you can use any component you want on it, and at night, fold in half, very limited space, and you can put it away. You can use your own chair, your own TV, problem solved.
What got into you?
At Sunoco, we know how to fuel peak performance. Fuel your best.
Zach Wilson, the winner of both stages here for the Dirty Air 250, live from the virtual Bristol Motor Speedway and the dirt configuration as we continue our coverage live on Podium Esports. Kenneth Bueno and Joey Atterbury with the coverage. Ryan Bauer producing all the shots you're seeing tonight. He's using cameras provided by both himself and by Dougie Beard. We have seen this race evolve drastically since the drop of the green flag at lap 1. Of course, while the 51 of Zach Wilson, his dominance has been unchanged, the way these drivers race these cars has. And Joey, you mentioned it while we were under break, the way that you kind of have to change the way you arc the corners, the way you throw it in based on the fact that things have gotten so slippery and the setup has adjusted in that way as well.
You've mentioned how much the race has changed. Just look at the racetrack, how wide that slick patch is. It covers almost 4 lanes wide, and you're right. See drivers really having to throw the car in. If you're familiar with rally, kind of call it a Scandinavian flick to try to get as much yaw angle as possible, because it seems like they pick up a lot of understeer right through the middle of the corner, right when you need the car to turn. And That's when they're trying to roll back to the throttle, squeeze onto that gas, and trust me, when the car doesn't turn and you're trying to accelerate, you're looking at a wall right in front of you. That's never a good sight.
And with the way these drivers have been managing the corners, especially in that diamond arc that they're taking, I'm surprised we haven't seen more of them take to that outside wall, although the field is starting to travel further up the track as the groove slickens, so we'll see if that experimentation gets a lot more extreme in this final stage. 59 laps to go. Green flag is back in the air with a Dirty Air 250 from Bristol Dirt, and once again it is a dominant start for Zach Wilson. Pulls away by 3/10 of a second. They are going at it for P2. Ross Harlow and Colin Forrester into turn 3.
Yeah, side by side for second place, and then, ooh, heavy contact between the 18 and the 95. So I think the 95 gets sent down the racetrack, and now we got a big wreck here coming out of turn 4. Yellow on the racetrack, Kenneth.
Our biggest crash all night long as Parker Bland goes up and over the pole sitter, gets the car to a stop, and that car is torn up. And like you mentioned there, Joey, it all started with the back end of the top 5. That 18 got way too loose and chased it down the track, got into the 55, and this is what stacks everybody up. And we've seen it multiple times, everybody getting on the brakes, but they just have no time to get out of it, no grip either. And the 18 goes into the barrels, gets an extra shot as well from the back end of the race car by Chris Pogar, and then by another, goes end over end as everybody piles in.
This is a tough one on the 18 because you see it's kind of self-spin here, and then you called it a little bit of contact, but where the big damage comes from is he tries to get back on the racetrack too quickly here and doesn't have enough space. You see him clip those tire barriers, those water barrels, and all of a sudden just chaos on the front straightaway.
That's a long list of cars that you have to put in that list. Chris Pogar in the 7, the number 8 of Kip Easley, obviously the 18 of Bland, the 25 of Hurley, the 9 of Bill Schoonover. Among those involved, Joe Sanchez, obviously the first driver to get hit. And just like we saw with the prior incidents, although this is the biggest, Joey, you make any sort of slight contact here at Bristol Dirt and even on any other dirt surface, and it's going to be a very big crash. And if you look at other tracks, slight contact probably isn't going to result in a big one, but here at Bristol Dirt, it is way different, and such a tough break for Parker Bland, who started this race up at the front, now is on pit road, and with the lack of fast repairs, he's going to be in there for a while.
Well, Kenneth, I think you mentioned it at the very beginning of the show, just the accident avoidance, right? And the different racetracks definitely play into it, but here covered in dirt, you just don't have that avoidance distance or time. So if something happens in front of you, you can't just stop the car. You can't just change directions all of a sudden and count the car to stick in those direction change moves. So yeah, when something happens like that, it almost seems like you have to double, if not triple, your reaction distance in order to avoid something.
So that's another caution shortly after we get our most recent restart for the beginning of stage number 3. Of course, we do go 65 laps, that is scheduled, but obviously with the cautions, with the laps that we have to use to get everybody back in order, we did go green with about 59 laps left. And if telemetry serves me correctly, it says we'll go about 19.5 minutes here, at least if we stay green all the way to the end. And Joey, there's been a lot of talk about Bristol Motor Speedway and the fact that it can easily be very disorienting when you're driving this track, maybe not on dirt, but on the asphalt version, where you're going so quickly around here, 19-20 seconds or even less on the normal end of Bristol Motor Speedway, and it just feels like you don't know where you are. You feel like you're on the front straightaway, back straightaway, you get the mix. It's so weird to drive this track, and then you're kind of in that focus and you're like, wait, where am I on the track? It's sort of fun to see.
I'm glad you bring that up, not just the disorientation part of how fast the racetrack is, but I agree. I come from the road racing world primarily, and sometimes it's like, wait, am I going into turn 1 or is this turn 3 this time? You do get a little confused.
Yeah, and with the way this track is built, obviously both ends are similar, both straightaways are the same, so you're looking at the same track wherever you are. And you add in dirt when you have to have tear-offs and windshield wiper things where you're throwing the dirt off. If you let that pile in, good luck to you. You're probably not going to see anything when you're driving out on the racetrack. Hopefully it's clear for Zach Wilson and Ross Harlow. They've got the view of Barney the Flagman. He's got the green flag with 52 laps to go. Car sideways in the middle of the inside lane. That I think was Dakota Curtis in the 10. A little bit slow to get going, but we're back under green. And once again, a battle for second. This time, Ross Harlow defending against the 99 of Mario Miranda. Looking in, gives him contact for third.
Yeah, and actually that was Colin Forrester in the 31 that got a really bad restart, Kenneth, that was sideways on the inside lane, had made up all that track position. Now he finds himself way back there in the 9th place position. So a nightmare restart, especially with only 51 laps to go here for Colin Forrester.
We saw him attacking at your race leader while he wasn't able to officially get by. Actually, speaking of which, Zach Wilson goes around with Ross Harlow. Both of them get together and are sat on the apron. It looks like it will hand the lead to Mario Miranda in the 99, but what happened to Zach Wilson and Ross Harlow?
Yeah, this was our race leaders, and I think Zach Wilson just got way up the racetrack, ended up coming down kind of like our last yellow, and the number 5 was just right there, Ross Harlow in the way. You see the replay here. Man, there are 2 front runners.
And that is a rare mistake out of the 51. He chases down the track, loses all of the speed. The 5 goes down, and he's got nowhere to go. And the 51's around again. This time we'll bring out the yellow flag at lap 77 with about 48 laps to go. And the drama only continues for your former race leader and the winner of both stages tonight in the Dirty Air 250. We'll see exactly what happened the second time around. Maybe a little bit of karma, some payback, Joey, but I think it was just a mistake out of the 5 and did the same exact thing Wilson did about a lap ago.
Yeah, you're right. Just the same thing, and then Zach Wilson just nowhere to go. This time gets spun around, but brings out the yellow flag. So kind of a little bit of a mental reset, but man, talk about getting knocked off at the top of the mountain.
I think there was also a problem with Joe Sanchez in the 55. Got sideways, tried to lock it up. It was the 13 of Gary Sexton that got into him, and then he got hit by James Kunkel, and then another car who I believe was Justin Erb in the 20. No, the 3 of James Kunkel, then the 20 of Justin Erb. That 55, it gets a bit of the front end damage, and I believe a bit of that front clip ripped off. And Sanchez, who had such a decent start to this race, now near the tail end of the field on pit road. So Joey, just how quickly things change here at Bristol Dirt. You could be the most dominant driver up until this point. You make that one mistake, and all of a sudden, you're trapped in the back of the field.
Yeah, and we mentioned how important track position is, and see a lot of these drivers come down and try to fix some of that damage. And if memory serves me correct, Kenneth, I think it was the number 5, Ross Harlow, that was collected in an accident early on in the race when he was running down low in the bottom, and almost a little bit of deja vu bit him again right there with the leader. Got a feel for that number 5 and that kind of bottom lane. It seems like some of these NASCAR tracks are self-cleaning going up top. Here, the dirt, everything's coming down the hill.
Yeah, it's going down the banking, and for the 5, it's just a case of tough circumstance. He's running that lane because that's where he's most comfortable, that's where he's been the most fast, but then you have a driver at the top make a mistake, and there's nothing that he could do. It's just the unfortunate part of it. That's how he got caught up with Zach Wilson here, and then just made the same mistake and catches that 51 again. Fortunately for both of them, they're not going to fall a lap down. They're 12th and 13th as the running order tells us and the timing sheet, so they will be still in contention to gain spots, but this is a very different look, most notably for Wilson, that we've seen all race, because Joey, when you have that mindset of being at the front, you're like, all right, I've got the lead, I'm the fastest car out here, and then all of a sudden you get caught up in a crash and it switches in an instant. You have to change your game plan so much from what you used to have early.
Well, and not only that, but the racing in the mid-pack is, I feel, even tougher than what it is at the front. You're not only dealing with cars behind you fending them off, but you're also having to deal with cars in front of you trying to get around them. So it's just a whole different ball game there in the middle of the pack, racing wise. And I know that we're getting ready to go back racing, but one thing I want to notice here, Chris Progar in the number 7. We haven't mentioned him at all, up 21 positions into the top 5 right now.
It's true, started 24th and has made his way up through the field. By the way, it was in that big crash with Parker Bland going up and over. It just shows you just how much attrition matters here at Bristol Dirt, and the fact that these cars are pretty much tanks. You can take a beating with them and still have a good enough car to run up front. That 7 restarts in 3rd. Green flag back in the air. It's Miranda leading us through the first turn. 14 of Austin Shoemaker behind him as the 7 gets trapped in the middle, 3 wide. A bit of door banging with the 96 and the 31. It sends Forster up the track. And the 7 gets into the 10 of Curtis. He slides in the middle, and there goes Lawson Peel with a slide job for P4.
Oh, the slide job gone wrong. He gets up into the outside wall, and now a sandwich of 3 cars on the front straightaway, and you see him still trying to sort each other out, and we got a log jam 6 wide back there.
They're packing it in, and somehow nobody got sideways enough to cause the yellow, but now it finally waves. So we'll slow the field down, and that could have gotten much worse. Everybody was packed in. We'll try to officially identify who it was that did go around and bring out that caution. But we saw the door banging, we saw the aggression, we saw the physicality. It just might be, Joey, the fact that we're racing here at Dirt, you can probably get away with it a little more, or just the fact that we're in the home stretch of this race, as we'll see exactly what happened, and it might have been with the 3 of James Kunkel brings out this most recent caution.
Wow, look at him just rip the top end of the racetrack here. Let's see if he does it again. No, chooses the middle. See what happens. The 54 looks like he's coming down a little bit, and everything seems pretty straightforward from here, Kenneth, and maybe heading into turn 1. Oh, looks like a pretty big stack up, and yeah, he just gets loose on the bottom end of the racetrack. Couple that with, I believe that was the 43 as well of Sean Kalist with another spin, 2 cars around at the same corner.
And it was a case of really no contact for either of them. Or well, for the 43, a bit of contact on the front end, but for the 3, just a case of diving it in, sending it in far, and that car not being able to keep itself slightly sideways. It just went completely around. And for Kunkel and Kalist, both of them end up the result of this caution. Drivers on pit road, one of them, Lawson Peel. We saw him up and around the top 5 or so, went for that slide job. He got hit a couple of times, but now he is taking it to the lane. He is 13th at the rejoin, and that is Joe Sanchez in the 55, his Drinking Bros teammate, alongside him. So an interesting call here, Joey, by Peel, who could have easily kept that track position and had that be the most important factor, but instead wanted to damage repair that race car quite a bit. Now he's back out.
I don't blame him, because he not only got hit in front and back, but also kind of got sandwiched between a car and the wall. So not a bad move for that number 12 to come down and kind of do damage assessment, if you will. And honestly, the number 12 kind of put a big smile on my face, because, correct me if I'm wrong here, that was the first really big slide job that we have seen here.
Yeah, that's true. The biggest slide job. I think maybe the only that we've seen, at least on camera. We saw a lot of moves happen around the mid-pack and near the back of the field, but not a slide job as big as that one. And you can only imagine that as we close in on the final 35 laps of this race, those slide jobs are going to get a little more frequent. And then you ask, if you're Austin Shoemaker, Austin Reedy, Chris Progar, Dakota Curtis, if you're any one of these guys in the top 5, got a shot at Miranda, why not send the slide job? You can get the lead.
Absolutely. And, you know, another thing we haven't talked about in relation to how you drive this racetrack is, what do you think about tire wear? With the groove widening out so much, do you think we're going to see a difference between cars running the bottom all night and cars running the top all night now that we're here at the end of the race? It seems like track position is still key, and whoever can handle the racetrack is who comes out on top. But that's another factor we haven't really mentioned.
Yeah, that's true, and tires haven't necessarily worn all too much, but with the way the track is slickening off, these tires are not really as great as they were at the beginning of the run or even at the beginning of the race. And while we have seen a lot of them come in for the pit lane, many of them have stayed out all night long, and that includes a bulk of the drivers that are sitting second on back. While Miranda came in about 60 laps ago because he was involved in that big crash a while back in this event, everyone else, they've been here all the time. and without a trip down to the pit lane. Pace truck is down, green flag back in the air, an overhead view of the restart heading for turn 1. Chris Progar right on the outside of the 14 of Austin Shoemaker, Colin Forrester right behind him, and mostly everybody 2 by 2, and it's clean for the back straightaway.
Oh, the 31 of Forrester throws it down underneath the 7 here of Progar in 3 and 4. Doesn't get the drive off that he needs, but this is the side-by-side battle for 4th place. And let me tell you, from here on back, it is really busy.
It is very busy around the latter half of the top 10. There's 2 cars around. One of them is the 46 of Joseph Mohar, the other the 20 of Justin Erb.
Oh,
but they
spin
both
at
get
the
their car
beginning.
straightened out. Caution out with the 96. It's Austin Reedy that's in trouble.
Yeah, you called it. The 96 gets tapped and spun around Austin Reedy, and that was right at the front of the field. That happened inside of our top 4.
And you know what it was, Joey? They just got 2 sideways, chased it down the track, lost the speed, and it was the 7 of Chris Progar that gets into him. Here's a look at it. There's the lost speed by that Teamer Designs Camaro. In comes the 7, then the 31, and then everybody else who's trying to get by. A big hit by Dustin Reeves, who gets into Richard Swavely, who got into the 96. And it's just a domino effect, Joey, at these dirt tracks. You get one car into it, everyone else just piles in. They're trying to hold on to the brakes, but there's really nothing they can do. There's Dakota Curtis getting around it, though.
And it was a great call on your end. You're right, just a little bit too yawed out. And man, just the dominoes and how everybody piles in. It's just so tough to get these cars stopped. And let me tell you, with only 33 laps to go, that is not what you want to see coming out of turn 4 or even turn 2 for that matter.
It's a scary sight. You see that happen right in front of you and you're like, oh boy, you're trying to get around it, and you know that there's not much you can do once you apply that brake pedal, because this car is just gonna slide off into the sunset, or in this case, slide off into the nightfall with the way the weather has gone by and the night has progressed here from Bristol Motor Speedway. So Chris Progar, despite getting into that number 96, he's gonna stay in 3rd. And Chris Progar in the 7 did not necessarily have the greatest race at Richmond in our last outing. He started 24th and he worked his way up to 16th, but just kind of hung around the midfield. And now it's sort of that opportunity to get to the front, get around Mario Miranda. And here, Joey, if you're one of those guys, you're Progar, you've just been hanging around, you've gotten a couple of beans, but you're here. Now, how do you play it? Are you more aggressive? Are you just thankful to be up in this spot and you're just trying to keep it at this stage? What do you really think here behind the wheel?
I think you have to race the race that's going on. And what we're seeing right now is pretty frequent yellows the last handful of times. And so, yeah, I think you do have to get aggressive. If it's going to stay slow paced like this, that means track position is king. That means you might only have a couple of corners of green flag racing. Get your elbows out and get those positions while you can. And I'm actually noticing, I know that I'm somewhat new to the series over here, but Mario Miranda, the only potential repeat winner right now, is he's sitting on top. Ross Harlow also right there as well, but a couple familiar names I'm seeing making their way to the front.
Yeah, and as you spend a lot more time with this series, you'll recognize Miranda as one of the best drivers in this series, along with Lawson Peel and a bunch of others. Miranda, of course, the winner last time. We were here at the Bristol Dirt Surface back in Season 5. It was a longer race, 151 laps, but Miranda has been dominant here. He led only 5 laps at Bristol Dirt last season, but it was good enough to get him the win over Lawson Peel. He won at Circuit of the Americas a couple of weeks ago. He has spent the last 3 races inside the top 3 for a majority of it, and this would be his 3rd straight top 3 finish and his 2nd win in the calendar year if he's able to do it. And Austin Shoemaker in the 14, got to give credit to him as well in his car. Started 18th and now up to P2. So it has been somewhat of a rout here from Bristol Dirt. And Miranda will lead us back to the green with roughly 29 laps to go from Bristol. The 5 of Ross Harlow with a better jump. He'll look for the 99's rear bumper out of turn 2, and they're roughly 3 wide around the back end of the top 10.
And just props to Ross Harlow, because he was collected in 2 wrecks down low and now fighting back for the lead. And we got 2 and 3 wide racing a little bit further back, but Mario Miranda and Ross Harlow setting their sails right now.
We saw Zach Wilson get hit into the outside wall. There's 2 cars around at the exit of 2 and even more. The 96 and the 71, the 2 cars for Fast Banana Racing, both tag in together, and they bring some more drivers with them. Caution is out again at lap number 99, and it started around this 3-car train. But really, it started here with this contact at the back end of the 51. And then right about there, they stack up. Stempien gets into Kelly, who then gets into the 96. And Joey, it's just a simple matter of more contact.
Yeah, and you know, I'm going to call that one a racing incident. I really didn't see anything malicious. Sure, there was a couple nudges going into the corner, but it really was 4 cars trying to fit on the racetrack. And I mentioned the dance. You got to dance out there, and trust me, there's not always room for 4 into 1.
Curtis Kelly, the winner at Atlanta Motor Speedway to kick off the season. Of course, he's in the playoffs, but Austin Reedy, who has done such a great job to run well at all of the tracks that we have raced at so far, he's going to have a bit of an uphill battle this time. He's going to be 12th, I believe, once we get back to the restart. There's a look at the whole field, at least in terms of the top 5 behind the iRacing official pace truck. Mario Miranda looking to defend his spot, but on that last restart, you pointed it out, Joey, the great run by Ross Harlow tried to make it a fight for the lead, and while he couldn't get to the side of the 99, whether it be on the bottom or the top, he was there. So he's kind of sending that message out right now.
Well, and I'm just impressed that he's been involved in a couple wrecks, hasn't let it phase him at all, because one thing as a driver, you can really let that stuff get to you mentally, but he hasn't. He's gotten right back up on it. He's sitting in second place, and he's doing what he needs to do to potentially steal away a win tonight. He's shown that he's one of the fastest cars, and why shouldn't he be up front there battling for this win?
And also, you look at his storyline, why not go for 2 in a row? If you can win Richmond 1 week ago, you can win Bristol Dirt here tonight. You're only adding on to your momentum and adding on to the amount of points that you're leading the rest of the field with heading into the playoffs way down the line. You probably don't think it makes that much of a difference now, but if you get a lot of wins, especially in succession, you're giving yourself such a great points buffer for the regular season championship, and then of course for the points lead heading into the playoffs. And we know with the way the playoffs are and how scrappy that can get, Joey, it definitely means a lot to just gain these momentum points finishes now and do all that you can. As you look at Gary Sexton, who has now found his way back into the top 7. Remember, he was in the lead earlier tonight.
Yeah, another one of our front runners trying to make his way back up through the field here in the number 13, currently sitting in position number 7. Is looks like we're starting to get him lined up here for the restart. And Gary Sexton definitely had a rough front half of the race, although 24 laps to go. We've seen so many cars already get collected here, whether it's from self spins or contact. Plenty of racing left for that number 13 to still move up a few.
We'll see what he can do, but it's the 99 and the 5, Mario Miranda and Ross Harlow, who will lead us back to the green with 22 laps remaining in this Dirty Air 250. Austin Shoemaker and Chris Progar, they're the 2 drivers lined up in the second row, and then goes Lawson Peel and Colin Forrester 5th and 6th on the racetrack, as the pace truck will peel off for pit road. And that 99 once again taking that top lane like he has been doing, and it is pretty much given him a lot of success every single time. And this time around, as they cross the line, it's a good start for turn 1. 22 laps left, and there's Ross Harlow on the rear bumper.
Yeah, Harlow's really giving it a really good launch on the restart. The number 5 has the chicken dinner, smelling that he wants it out there. Look at this drive that he's getting off of the corner. Ross Harlow looking very strong.
They are oscillating all over the place, entering the corner, but Harlow is there. There's a look on the bottom right as his cam, he tries to wheel his race car to the win. Chris Progar holds on for 3rd over Austin Shoemaker, and Lawson Peel, who gets a huge lunge on the 14, and that will be for 4th, but he will lose out on that fight. The 13 of Gary Sexton not too far behind, as there's Harlow, still half a second off of Miranda, but the last time by, a little slower, but we'll see if it changes, and everybody mostly single file around your top 10.
Something else I'm noticing, that number 12 creeping up inside the top 5. Lawson Peel think he came down. I'm not sure if he got a new set of tires, but he was recently down pit road. Looks to be one of the fastest cars on the racetrack, ripping the top on this cushion.
He'll look to get around the 14, no success as they go side by side for P6. Zach Wilson getting into the 13, not once but twice, entering the corner. We saw Wilson in trouble earlier this evening. He won both of the stages, and there's Colin Forster, one of the other fast cars we've seen in this Dirty Air 250. They're all just trying to get their way back up through the top 3, but so far, none of them have been able to best the cars in front of them. Peel is still working on the 13. The 31 now trying to attack on Wilson. He does so. He gets by. Wilson with a crossover.
You were right. The names here in this mid-top 10 fight, these are all the front runners from early on that had the troubles, and now they've made their way back into the top 5. But not only are they battling themselves, but look at Mario Miranda, Ross Harlow, Chris Progar. They're all running away from these cars, battling amongst each other.
They're trying their hardest, and they're being very aggressive. Zach Wilson, though, is in trouble, and it looks like he might have picked up Dakota Curtis in this mess. He does, and the Sunoco Ford Mustang finally gets back out on track. So does the 51 of Zach Wilson for RTR Motorsports. But that looks like race lost if there's not another caution till the end of this race, as Miranda pulls away 0.7 of a second and approaching one of the biggest factors we've touched on all night, Joey, the fun bit of lap traffic. The caution will come out before he gets to them, though. It's Steven Stepien in trouble.
Even Stepien we see here coming out of, this looks like turn number 4. Maybe had some issues going into turn 3 is what I would assume. Keep your eyes on this silver and black 81. Riding the high line here coming out of turn number 2. See if the 23 gets banged up. This is tough. You're dealing with 3 race cars, you know, one in front of you, one behind you, and then, oh my goodness, one in your windshield parked.
That's the 9, Bill Schoonover, who just spun all by himself. And you'll see it right about there, just loses the race car, and there's nothing Stepien can do, and neither can Wilson, who got into a spin about a lap earlier than this mayhem. He got into Dakota Curtis, and they both went around, and for Wilson, it has just been back and forth, back and forth. You have a shot at the race lead, you have a shot at top 5, and then it just gets ripped away from you, and it might just be tough, Joey. You know, you're getting so close, but yet so far every time a new caution comes out, because you end up in a spin or you end up in somebody else's mess.
Let me tell you, racing is a cruel, cruel mother. She will love you and entice you with all the treats, but she will teach you some hard lessons out there on the racetrack as well. And something I was noticing, Kenneth, before we went to the yellow flag is how hard these front leaders are having to really throw the car into the corners. And that means to me, if you're going to try to make an aggressive move, means you really got to drive it in crazy hard to the bottom of the racetrack and really get your elbows out. I feel like this restart and this finish is going to get wild.
And how do you really set that up? Because you're looking at big bumps on either of the straightaways entering the corner. So how do you find a way to angle this next-gen car and get it to do what you want, especially with this underbody that just continues to hit the ground?
I totally agree. That's part of the challenge. We saw the number 12, I think, Lawson Peel throw the biggest slide job of the night, but that was still 25 laps ago. You know, we haven't seen anybody really just kind of huck it to the bottom and pray, as you will.
And what's interesting here, you're looking at this field under caution. We should look at the 1 to green signal this time by as we cross the line. Actually, no, lights will stay on, so we'll go at least another lap before we set the field up for a restart inside, at least 10 laps to go. But look at the drivers from 1st through 3rd. They're running the bottom. They're not on the slick stuff. Are they just looking to not put more rubber on the surface? It looks like Sexton, Shoemaker, and a bunch of others really don't care, but your top 3 just want to preserve as much moisture and as much grip on that surface as possible because they don't really want to flirt there, and now Miranda's going to go to the very top.
I think that's a great point. I think here in the sim, it's exactly what you're talking about, is they're trying not to drive on the racing line because they're trying to save the racing line as much as possible because they know that's their only potential possibility of making a pass out there is to have multiple grooves.
All right, so it looks like we've got the lights off on the pace truck. It's Mario Miranda and Ross Harlow, who again will occupy row 1. We have seen many attempted attacks by that 5, but will he have a successful one in order to get his second straight win? Miranda looking for his second win in the last 3 races. Gary Sexton, Chris Progar, still eyeing win number 1 in their careers, at least for season 6. And then Colin Forrester inside the top 5 rookie driver. Austin Shoemaker in the 14, Austin Reedy, Lawson Peel, Garrett Brown, and Kevin Hurley, the rest of your top 10. Pace truck is down, Miranda up and away, back under green with 9 laps to go.
Looks like Harlow's still sticking towards the bottom, but check out the run from the number 13 of Gary Sexton. All of a sudden, Gary is right back battling for this lead way up front. You got to remember, he started on the front row.
He did, and now he's ripping the top side. He does not want to use any of the slick stuff in the middle or the bottom. He's the only one to experiment with the top, but it is short-lived. Caution flag is out again. It's Charles Feltz, Curtis Kelly, Sean Kalis, those involved in a lineup stack-up, the exit of turn 4.
Check out this replay here as we're following along with the number 75, Charles Feltz, on the screen, following the 54, Brandon Banks as well. And let's see, is this a car that's going to be spun around in front of him? Yeah, sure enough, a stack up right in front of him. Looks like the 71 was already around. Maybe the number 47 of Isaac Mock is well involved. As here's we get that, is the culprit, the number 10.
It was the 10 of Curtis who had the first bit of contact with the 4 of Chris Shoemaker, then parked it because he was trying to slow down the car. The 46 of Joseph Mahar gets into Curtis Kelly, then into Isaac Mock, then into the 8 of Kip Beasley. And again, it's just another domino effect. You turn one down, all of a sudden the other ones that are behind them just start falling, and you get more cars and more cars involved in a caution, even though they may just be miles behind what may be happening out on track. But what this will do, Joey, is push us into a restart with less than 5 laps to go. We do have green-white checkered attempts available to us, but that means desperation is at an all-time high, and especially so if you're that 13 of Sexton who just got to second and has a shot at the win.
You took the words right out of my mouth, flirting with that green-white checkered opportunity. And I think if I'm a driver, that's kind of how I approach that is, yeah, sure, we got 3 GWCs left to go, but I'm going to treat this as one, maybe throw an aggressive move, see if I can get some track position right off of the bat.
And if you're the 13 of Sexton here, Joey, are you just looking at that dive in, like you said, bottom move, the top huge slider?
That's a tough one because the restart has really been controlled by that outside lane all night, and I feel like lining up on the front row is a very big disadvantage because going into turn 1, it already seems like the leader is clear. At that slide job, you're throwing it with no momentum at that point.
And we saw that 13 in that last restart just stick to the high lane. And that 99 has been somewhat around the middle, has been diamonding the corners. So it's been different styles of racing by both of these drivers. And when you look back in history, this 99, of course, already locked into the playoffs with that win at Coda, with that 13. Oh, so close to the checkered flag at Atlanta, had the lead and just got turned on the back straight away. He saw the win right where he was looking at it, and all of a sudden it just was all over in an instant. This 13 can change the script, get a win, lock himself into the playoffs, become the 4th different driver to get to victory lane. There's both of them on the bottom right side. And Joey, they have been at it all night. You can imagine there's probably a lot of physical wear and mental wear behind the wheel. Look at Gary right there, just wiping the sweat off his eyebrows. He's trying to get ready for the restart, but you can tell how tough it is to drive this track with this car.
Well, and I think that there's been multiple players up front, but these are the 2 that have really controlled the race. Gary Sexton at the beginning before his troubles, and then ever since that Mario Miranda there. And so I think these are the 2 that rightfully should be battling it for the win.
They both will be in row number 1. Chris Progar and Ross Harlow back in row 2. Lawson Peel, Colin Forster in that 3rd row. It's Austin Shoemaker and Austin Reedy, pair of Austins, in row number 4. And then Kevin Hurley, Zach Wilson, those last 2 to round out the current top 10, although things can change in an instant. Organic restart with 2 laps to go here in the Dirty Air 250. Miranda up and away at the exit of turn 4 in the final laps here from Bristol Dirt.
Miranda did exactly what he needed to, and there's Harlow way down low, Sexton way up top, trying to get the run off of the corner, but Mario Miranda scooting away from the rest of the field.
They were almost 3 wide, around 4th on back. Colin Forster in a sea of cars. Ross Harlow makes contact with him. Contact between the 12 and the 7, but it's white flag for Miranda into turn 1 for the final time.
Look at the run Sexton has coming off of turn 2. Does he throw the slider in 3? Only one opportunity.
Last chance for the 13. He doesn't take it. Off for the 4th corner. It's Mario Miranda for win number 2 of season 6. Bristol Dirt goes to Mario Miranda.
What a race from that number 99. Once he got out front, he took control and never looked back.
He stays winning at Bristol Dirt. Last season picked up the win, leading 5 laps, and this time around doubles it down. As the 13 of Gary Sexton gives his congratulations, a bunch of other drivers still looking to finish this race. But it is Mario Miranda for the 2nd time this season with the Sunoco winning moment. Most high-performance racing engines rely on Sunoco race fuels than all others combined in over 50 years. Sunoco has been fueling the top race car drivers around the world with high-quality performance fuels they can trust to power them to the checkered flag. Sunoco, fueling victories from track to tank. There's Gary Sexton, both of them teammates at 0G, so of course the team must be happy with a 1-2 finish as Miranda continues to burn it down, and we've got more on the other side of the break. Our post-race coverage of the Dirty Air 250 on the way here from Podium Esports. You're watching coverage of Race 4 in Season 6 of the Sunoco Cup Series.
Janice.
What got into you?
At Sunoco, we know how to fuel peak performance. We've been doing it for American racing for over 50 years. Fuel your best.
Fuller. Yeah. Needed F-150 for Smith build.
Got it.
Yesterday.
I know.
Don't forget my BMW.
Gotcha. Check this out. All the major online automotive sites in one place. BMW, done. F-150, done.
How's he do it?
I can search nationwide, even those classified sites. Auto Tempest, all the cars, one search. That's how I do it.
Hi guys, today me and Moose welcome to my extremely formal presentation of my 2 latest creations, the MPI Sync Chassis and the MPI Foldable Stand. When I created the MPI chassis, I wanted to have everything included, what it means. So in the MPI chassis, I wanted to have everything you need besides the electronics. So it has the keyboard tray, mouse tray, adjustability, TV stand, computer stand, super stiff pedal assembly, a seat that if you want, if you don't have a lot of space, you can fold it. If you have limited space, I solved your problem. The MPI wheel stand, you can use any component you want on it, and at night, fold in half, very limited space, and you can put it away. You can use your own chair, your own TV, problem solved.
What got into you?
At Sunoco, we know how to fuel peak performance. We've been doing it for American racing for over 50 years. Fuel your best.
Winner decided here from Bristol Dirt, and it is Tulsa, Oklahoma's Mario Miranda with the win after starting in 7th. His teammate from 0G, Gary Sexton, tried to mount a charge late in the going, but could not do so as he comes home right behind that Ford Mustang. Russ Harlow in the 5 wraps up the top 3, sort of an up and down race for him, but a nice recovery nonetheless. Fast Banana represented by Colin Forrester, also quick from the get-go. He finishes in 4th. Chris Progard with a huge rebound from 24th on the starting grid to the top 5. Austin Riddy finishes in P6. 7th will go to the 12 of Lawson Peel. It will be Zach Wilson, who swept both stages but could not get back to the front for the race win. It'll be P9 for Kevin Hurley after starting 19th, and Joey rounding out the top 10. That is the 14 of Austin Shoemaker.
Yeah, and then you got Chris Shoemaker right behind him there in the 11th place position. Steven Stempian there, who we highlighted, involved in a few wrecks, but comes home 12th. Joe Sanchez 13th. Garrett Brown coming home 14th. Dakota Curtis in 15th. And actually the last car on the lead lap, Bill Schoonover there in 16th. 1 lap down, Curtis Kelly, Aaron Adcock, Isaac Mock, and Joseph Mahar rounding out the top 20.
21st will be the number 20 of Justin Erb, who finishes this race 3 laps down. Brandon Banks also 3 laps down in 22nd. Charles Phelps in the 75 is 23rd. 24th will go to Sean Kalis, and James Kunkel in the 3 finishes 6 laps down and is the last one inside the top 25. Then goes Dustin Reeves in 26th. 27th will go to Richard Swabley. 28th to Kip Easley. Parker Bland and Wyatt Brackett finished 29th and 30th, both 16 and 67 laps down respectively. Jesse Whittington is 31st at the drop of the checkered flag, but had such a great race to start. Logan Sturgeon, his teammate, not too far behind in 32nd. Casey Knighton, who started this race from dead last in 40th, only gets up to 33rd near the end. Justin Miller is 34th. Alex Muscarella, despite starting 3rd, was just on the back foot from the start of this event after getting a lap down over the first caution. He's 88 laps down in 35th. Judd Danielson is 36th. 37th will go to Brad Fulham. 38th to Ray Rogers. Then Justin Winters 39th. And Travis Stevens in the 2, the last out of the 40 to make laps here at Bristol Motor Speedway and the dirt configuration. It's a mirror image, and it's victory lane for Mario Miranda. Won here last season and is back with the cap on in season 6 as he takes control at least the last 25 laps of this race and gets the win. Mario, I have to imagine this must have felt good with the roller coaster wave of emotions you had earlier tonight. You came back up, you dominated those last restarts. You're now a winner for the 2nd time this season. How's it feel?
It feels great, and honestly, this whole race was like deja vu to the last 2 times we were at Bristol. Just like, make a mistake early, get yourself in the back, and have to slowly make your way up. But I'm just, relieved to get the win. I think I put a lot of pressure on myself to win at this track after my past success, and just being from Oklahoma and representing, Oklahoma as like a racing state. It feels good to win. I know Christopher Bell also won earlier today, so it's just awesome way. I couldn't imagine a better way to end today off.
Is it just the night of the dirt race ringers? It feels like Christopher Bell the win tonight, you with the win here in the Sunoco Cup Series. But you had to learn a lot, especially near the end of that race where you had to control these restarts lap after lap after lap. What was the biggest thing in your mind as you kept taking the green flag with a different band of drivers behind you each time?
I wanted a green flag run for once. It was just exhausting. Having to switch up your restart zones when you're going in the zone and just kind of controlling the field behind you. With, like you said, it was almost like a new driver was behind me every other restart. So I just really wanted a green flag run. My long run speed was good, and it was good earlier in the race. I just wanted to just get like 10 laps under my belt and just get to the race to the end under green. But just gotta keep your head cool, mix up your restart zones. Especially helpful that when you have a teammate, lining up to your inside, you two can kind of control the front row on the final restart.
Well, you're able to do just that, and we know that your teammate, Gary Sexton, also finished behind you, so a great 0G finish, 1-2, but your 2nd win of the season after your first at COTA not too long ago. It's your 3rd straight top 3 finish in this series. So how much momentum is that continuing to add onto your playoff push for this year?
It's adding a lot of momentum. It's honestly, just recapping what I did 2 years ago, my rookie season. Came out and won Coda, and then the second race I won Bristol Dirt. So in that first season, we went into the playoffs, number one driver and the number one favorite to win the championship. And I'm hoping to do the same again, just for this season, for that final product, instead of finishing second in the final four, is to finish first and finally get that championship I've been short too many times on.
Well, nonetheless, it's another win this season, and I know you've got the cap on. I know you've got to be very happy with the way this race turned out. Mario, on behalf of our entire broadcast team at Podium Esports, congratulations once again on win number 2 on the season. We look forward to seeing you 1 week from tonight in Sin City, Las Vegas.
Thank you so much. And I just want to shout out Twisted Tech. These guys are who are on my hat and on my shirt next to me. These guys are dirt ringers themselves out of Texas, and I'm glad to fulfill what they dreamt of and went on dirt for them.
So Mario Miranda in the 99, your race winner here from Bristol Motor Speedway. We'll turn to the driver who comes home in second, still from the 0G camp, but it is the 13 of Gary Sexton. And Joey, you're caught up with him.
Well, Gary, you got to be happy with second place, albeit not the top step. How do you feel after tonight?
A lot of ways, a lot of different ways. Happy for a second, bummed for a loss. Technically, I mean, I really feel like I could have won this race. I should have won it. I just made a really stupid mistake under caution. I thought we were in turn 2, and gassed up to practice a restart, and kind of looked off to my right and saw the restart zone and panicked and slammed on the brakes and got Parker all screwed up that whole restart and got black flagged, rightfully so, for it. And it was just an absolute adventure coming back through the field. A couple times I thought maybe I should have got the lucky dog, but they wouldn't give it to me because of contact on the the mess of cars all around. And finally we got the lucky dog back, and I think it was with like 25 to go. I finally got on the lead lap, and I thought that was plenty of time, and it was. I mean, I got to Mario. I just got a really poor restart on that last restart. I couldn't. Anyone who's run these cars on dirt, just like if you get the wheel spin, it gets really hard to get the car up into fourth gear. But I feel like fourth gear is just a little too bogged down to restart in fourth. So trying to get to fourth, I kind of lost a little bit of momentum and couldn't quite get back to Mario the way I wanted to. But he put on a good race. He did what he had to win, like he always does. But yeah, I'm happy for him, happy for 0G. Just really bummed that I pretty much gave the race away there in the first stage when I had to come back up through the field because it's so difficult to make your way up through. But hopefully I put on a show for everybody doing it. It was a lot of fun. I love racing dirt, especially in stock cars. So much fun.
Well, Gary, I kind of think that you had two different races going on. The beginning half of the race where you were definitely out front, lead in laps, and then, like you just mentioned, your march back through the traffic. And if you ask me, I do feel like you maybe had a little bit more speed than Mario the closing laps of the race. Was it just time and more laps that you needed, or is that kind of what you were fighting against?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, that was the first time all race, in the last 5 laps that I got to see how Mario was driving in his line. And, I had been sticking to my line pretty much the whole race, the way that I knew that I was getting up through the field. But obviously as you get closer to the front, the cars get better and better and better. So there was one caution that I felt like I should have got the lucky dog, but I did it, and that's just part of racing. But I think if I would have got it there, I would have had the last 20 laps to really size up Mario and see how he was running and could have beat him. Because just based on what I saw in those last 2 laps, I think if I had 2 more laps, I probably could have got by him without having to make some like sort of desperate slider. But I'm not going to take any credit away from Mario. I mean, he's one of the best racers in the league, and he's really good in the sim, and he knows how to control a car and do exactly what he has to do with it. So it's a lot of woulda, coulda, shoulda, but I think that pretty confident I could have figured out what he was doing and tried to get around him with a few more laps. But it was 125 laps and no more. So we got all the way up to P2. I really can't complain about that. Just to finish there. So yeah, it's a great race all around.
Well, and Gary, last question I got for you. And first of all, I want to point something out because our producer here behind the scenes is saying, look at your fast lap, 19.347. That stomps everybody else. I think the closest I see is a 19.5. So, Gary, you are smoking out there on the racetrack in terms of your speed. And looking forward, this is tons of momentum. 3 top 10s in a row, your first top 3 finish this season. Are we going to see you stand on top at Las Vegas next time out?
Maybe, if I can make it. I'm going to be shooting photos at Martinsville, so I don't know if I'll make it home in time. But I don't know, man. My mile and a half my mile and a half skill is probably my weakest on the service, which is kind of unfortunate because it's mostly what we run. I'm not bad. I think I can easily get a top 10, barring any carnage or stupid mistakes like I made tonight. But I'm a fan of the weird tracks, the gateways, Poconos, dirt. So that's where I look to shine, but you never know. I mean, anything could happen in this league. One of the, since we at Podium took on broadcasting these guys a few years ago, this league has always been fun to watch. It's always been crazy. There's always been a lot of parity, a lot of different winners. And now I've always wanted to race in it. And now I just finally get to do it this year, and haven't been disappointed. And I look for this kind of the same thing going forward. Just a lot of parity, a lot of really fun battles and cool points battles going down the stretch. So hopefully I can put it in victory lane here before Mario wins too many more, and we should be all right.
Well, Gary, thank you for everything that you do. And once again, keep riding that wave of momentum. I think you'll be surprised where you end up, maybe even spraying some champagne at the end of one of these.
Yeah, definitely. And yeah, big shout out to you guys. As one of the owners Podium, I really appreciate all the work that everyone does for us and helps out when we can, and means a lot. So hopefully everyone's enjoying it, and look forward to the next one.
Well, that was Gary Sexton coming home second here at Bristol Dirt.
A great finish for the driver of the 13. Also a great finish for the man who sits in this race behind him in P3, the 5 of Ross Harlow, the winner from last week at Richmond Raceway. And Ross, we know you were third on that last restart. You were as high as second in this insane race from Bristol Dirt. What did you see there out of your windshield in those last couple of laps?
Man, that was a ride. It was those last couple laps were definitely just hold on to the thing and send it as hard as he could in. Still was trying to run the bottom. That still seemed to be the best place to be, kind of carrying the speed through the center. But Mario was getting a heck of a drive off, and then Gary, of course, was doing the same, ripping the top there. I just wasn't ready for him to have the speed he did up there. So congrats to both of them. They were doing a great job racing each other. Almost got together, almost backed into one there. But either way, I'll take third here. That was a ride, man. That was a ride.
Certainly was a ride. I can imagine with the bumps that you found here at Bristol, especially on those straightaways all over the place. But top 3, felt like general consensus is the way that all of you guys were able to rebound after the things that struck you earlier in the race. Miranda with problems. You ended up in crashes. Sexton with a penalty. You guys were all able to find yourself back to the front of the field near the end. So how did it work out for you, and how were you able to keep your head in the game despite the crashes and despite some of the setbacks tonight?
Yeah, I mean, it was really just keeping a cool head. It's short track racing, and it's short track racing on dirt to boot. So, just stuff's gonna happen. You're gonna be bumping elbows. You're gonna be dealing with guys that you may not want to be dealing with normally, or you may not deal with normally anyways. But it's just keeping that cool head, keeping your line of sight past your hood, and just being smart with what's going on. It definitely got caught out a couple times there with Zach getting that weird hook in one there and coming down, and then just kind of bobbing and weaving otherwise. I think the car almost got destroyed 7 or 8 times there, just shooting gaps that were I don't know, 2 or 3 inches wider than the race car, and outside of where we got wrecked. So, and then drop into the back, you get those fresh tires, and they're a lot cooler than what was on the car. It's amazing how much faster they are, and especially there, you really got to be smart. You got to realize that a lot of these guys aren't going to have the corner speed that you've got now, and you just got to kind of back out of it and let it roll, let the spots come to you as they will. You be patient, you'll get back to the front. You just got to make sure that you're patient about it.
And now we head over to the first 1.5 mile race of the season that isn't a super speedway, because technically Atlanta's in that intermediate category, but it's Las Vegas next week, April 16th. What are your thoughts about the track and some of your expectations going into that one?
Yeah, I mean, I have a lot of fun at Vegas. It's not my best mile and a half, but as far as the tri-oval mile and a half, it's definitely up there. I have a lot of fun there. I think it's a really fun track. It's real fast. Especially if you get the wind right, or you get it on a cooler day, you're going to see a lot of speed, especially in these cars. Just got to be careful and play it smart. Same sort of thing. Just make sure you got a car there at the end, and keep the nose as clean as you can. Sans mud, of course.
Well, we certainly appreciate the time, Ross, as always. Congratulations on the podium finish here from Bristol Dirt. No dirt next week, thank goodness, or at least for the rest of the season, but you've got all the momentum heading into Las Vegas. Best of luck moving forward.
Yeah, thank you, Kenneth. I appreciate it. And big thank you to my family, my friends, all my teammates, my sponsors, TVP and G&G's Gift, all those guys. Of course, to you guys for putting this show on, and all the admin team over at the Sunoco Cup Series.
So that's Ross Harlow, the driver of the 5, coming home in 3rd here at the end of the Dirty Air 250. And Joey, wow, I think that's the only thing I can really say to describe this race. A lot of chaos, and the story from the top 3 was so cool to watch from beginning to end, just because you had 3 different stories and many different setbacks, and yet they all found their way back up to the front. And Mario Miranda just closes it off with a dominating last third of the race to take his 2nd win of the season.
Well, I think you mentioned it, the dominating last third of the race by Mario Miranda, our first repeat winner of the season. And then, yeah, the multiple stories, Gary Sexton coming out to battle it out for the win at the end. I think that we did see the fastest cars battle for the checkered flag at the end of the night.
We certainly did. We also saw some great finishes out of Colin Forster, Chris Progar, those guys who had been kind of hanging around all night, and they were able to strut their stuff later on in the race. But now we head over to Las Vegas, our first proper intermediate test. I know Atlanta was 1.5 miles, but that's a super speedway. Now we get to deal with some of the brake dragging and a lot of the slowing down efforts and tire saving and all of that with intermediate racing. So now what do we expect as we head to Sin City? We got to gamble a little bit.
I think a very different type of race. I think some of these racers are glad to put the dirt in their rearview mirror, and some of them maybe not so much. Mile and a halves are a little bit of a love-hate relationship out there, but they're the most popular racetracks on the NASCAR schedule. And trust me, if you're going to win and be successful on oval racing, you gotta master a mile and a half.
That is true. We're going to see a bulk of them in Season 6 of the Sunoco Cup Series. Also to note, the last time we were there was the 3rd to last race on October 16th of 2022, and it was Austin Reedy who picked up that win. So maybe we could see another brand new winner here in this series. It's a repeat winner this time around for Mario Miranda, who takes over the Dirty Air 250 and wins here from Bristol Motor Speedway. So for Dakota Curtis and all the admins at the Sunoco Cup Series, for Gary Sexton and John Theodore here at Podium Esports, for our producer Ryan Bauer, our camera creator Dougie Beard, and for my colleague in the booth this evening, Joey Atterbury, my name is Kenneth Bueno, saying thank you for so much for watching our broadcast of the Sunoco Cup Series. We'll see you at Las Vegas 1 week from tonight.